Okay, this is going to be our anatomy drawing of the arm, and I'm going to start it off like I did the other drawing, just blocking things in. Start with the gesture, block things in, get them where I like them, then start to dissect what the anatomy is up to. So I'm going to go ahead and do that kind of maybe in a time lapse. Okay, I'm going to start measuring this and sort of seeing, am I on the right track, where are things at? Feeling reasonable about it, but there may be a few things that are not quite correct. I'm going to take a measurement here and just compare it to that. On the drawing, it's looking like it's quite a bit longer in the lower arm. Just going to make sure that's correct. Yeah, that's pretty good. From shoulder to olecranon, from acromion to olecranon goes olecranon to right at the wrist. His hand could maybe be up just a little bit. All right, now I'm going to look for some more descriptive things to do in the arm. I'm not really going to straight line contour it yet. I'm just looking for descriptive things. There's this angle break there. Rather than draw a hand, I'm just going to draw the diamond shape of the fingers. Maybe this arc to what looks pretty straight to me of the wrist. Maybe get that little bit by the thumb. That's it for now. I'm just going to leave that. As long as that feels hand-like, that's going to be good enough for me. I'm not digging into hands just yet. All right, now I'm going to block this in. I'm going to do a straight line block in, get this a little clearer, a little more correct. I notice a good overlap there, so I'm going to make sure that shows up. Little bump there. That's that head of the ulna. There's some little angle changes out here to get if I really want this to start feeling like a hand. I'm going to get a couple of them. I'm going to call that good enough. I'm not going to worry about fingers, thumbs, any of that. I'm just trying to get the shapes there and maybe some of the blocky basic information. These probably extend out further. I'm not going to get too wrapped up in the contours down here. After all, this is just the torso, and I'm not really drawing that right now. But I do want to support the arm with something, so I'm going to anchor it to this. All right, is there anything that jumps out to me as being strange or incorrect? This feels a little tight right there. I think this could be gentler. And maybe this could be down a little further, just to take some of the pinch out of that spot. Okay, I think I'm ready to start putting in some bony landmarks and muscles. I'm gonna work my way down the bony landmarks first so that I can route the muscles appropriately. So I'm gonna start with the acromion, which is right there. Olecranon is right here. Medial epicondyle I don't see, it's tucked back under. If I imagine where this guy's funny bone is, it's tucked back underneath. So I just see the olecranon, and if there was a medial epicondyle, it would be back behind. Head of the ulna there. And sometimes I like to just throw a line there, just to remind myself, this is the ulna, or a representation of the ulna. No muscles are going to wrap or do anything beyond. That's kind of a dividing border. All right. And then, I could have a stand-in for this single bone of the arm as well, almost this skeleton idea. There's a bone that angles like that. Sometimes I like to put that in. All right, now I'm gonna start up here in the shoulder and just work my way down. So deltoid through biceps and so on. But I wanna make sure I don't just do this willy-nilly. I need to make sure that I'm paying attention to where things are at. So right now, this is my Lego muscle. I'm expecting a muscle that wraps around the front of this acromion, all the way around the back and back there. And then comes to a single point somewhere out here on this bone. So where is that happening? It's happening, if I just follow this line, it's kind of guiding me right to where that's happening, kind of right there. So now I know my muscle is here and it kind of flows up, or it starts up here and flows down. So let's get that in. I'm kind of thinking about the design here, making a nice set of curves to describe it. You really want to define this muscle. We're not just drawing a muscly arm, we're drawing the muscles of the arm. So I need deltoideus to be separate from the other muscles. That's why I have a nice hard line here and there to really show that I know the shape of that muscle. Again, you don't need to get too carried away with the fibers, though they can be fun and descriptive. All right, so what next? I know I'm looking at the back of this arm a little bit, so triceps is going to take a big amount of that space. What do I know about triceps? I know that it peaks out from underneath deltoideus here, and it ends right here on olecranon. So I'm looking for anything that does that. And this outer edge is my first thing that does that. It tucks behind this little overlap. Where's my flat strap of tendon going to be? It's going to be roughly here. I'll define that as I go. All right, so out from below this, I see a shiny spot all through here. That's the tube. That's like the flat strap here, tube of muscle of triceps before we get into other muscles. So I'm going to make sure that shows up. It's like I'm just going to put some cross contours on. It's like a tube of muscle going up. You don't need to put those cross contours on, but they help kind of describe the roundness of that thing. Then instead of this U shape I had before, it kind of cuts down like this. This guy's muscly, so he's got a lot of muscle belly going on. I can remind myself that this is a strap of tendon there. If I recall, there's even a split that happens up here, and you can almost see it on this guy. There's like a contour like that. I'm just going to throw that in. If you decide to put muscle fibers in your drawing, just make sure we can still see the muscle itself being a distinct thing. If they start to blend together, like you get so interested in fibers that the muscles start to disappear, bring them back, because mainly what we want to see is that you can differentiate between these muscles. All right, what else am I looking for? Up here, it's really tempting right here to just go, okay, biceps, and just make that one muscle. But if I look, there's a little contour right here. The bulk of what I'm seeing here is actually that brachialis muscle. Biceps is tucked around front. It's this little contour there. But this one is brachialis. One thing that's nice about finding biceps and brachialis and triceps is they split apart and they make room for that muscle that's my dividing muscle here. So I have my divider from olecranon to the head of the ulna. That's one divider. The other divider is on the other side. It goes from right up here, tucked into this groove, down towards the thumb. And that's my brachioradialis muscle. So I'm looking for something that starts as kind of a bar here. I think I'll bulge it out a little bit to get it closer to the tricep. So it starts kind of like that, and then it gets thinner as it goes towards the thumb. Do I see anything like that? As a matter of fact, I really clearly do. By the time we get down to this region, to the thumb, it's basically tendon at this point. It's really quite thin. Okay, now do I see a group of muscles that starts in this gap, sort of right next to the olecranon and this other side, not the medial epicondyle, which is tucked under, but the outside, that would head down to these fingers and flex them out. As a matter of fact, I see a strip of things headed that direction right now. Here's one where they're kind of obscuring the ulna a little bit, so they kind of come in front of the ulna just a bit. It looks like they might cross over and attach to the back. They don't. That's something that's happening in this model, particularly at this angle. But remember, the extensors don't wrap around the backside. They stay from that head of the ulna, they stay on the backhand side back here. So they start up here and just flow straight down past the wrist. And I can add a sense that they go out onto the hand if I like. Then they have little bits of separation in there because, as I said in the lecture, there are different muscles here. You can just add a sense that there's different muscles, but we are treating these as one solid group. Here's the ulna peeking out. Now, side step, sort of tangent. There is a muscle right here. That bulge that you see here, there's a triangle-shaped muscle right here called anconeus. We don't cover it. It's small, but you do see it quite often. If you want to supplement your anatomical knowledge, that little triangle muscle that goes from right about here down along the back of the ulna, it's a good one to know. For this drawing, we can just pretend that's the ulna coming out as well. And then out from the flexor, so the flexor muscles attach to this funny bone medial epicondyle on the other side. So I'm looking for a bulge that heads towards the front of the wrist here. And do I see something? Well, yeah, I do. Head of the ulna goes in like that. This whole drop down area here is that flexor group. So I'm just going to draw it in. All right, now there are a few small muscles that we don't cover, that we don't get into, but I am going to bring up here just because they help to add a little something, I guess, to the drawing. One is this anconeus muscle, that triangular muscle. I mean, it is there. Number two is there's some muscles that attach to the thumb that give you a little ridge right here, and they tuck underneath these extensor muscles. They can be nice to get in there as well, just to, in this case, they'd look almost like a couple of S's. Just to give you a sense of what's going on in that wrist. Again, they're not super necessary. I like to put them in. So this was done with a medium charcoal pencil on white paper. One thing that's kind of nice to do, and is not really necessary entirely, but this is something I tend to do. Giving that a smear will just soften everything and make room for an eraser to come in and add a little lighting detail maybe. One thing about deltoideus that's worth knowing is there's kind of a back grouping, a center grouping, and a front grouping. So if you can remember that, it'll feel better. It's kind of like back, center, front, even though it's all the same muscle. Anyway, not to get carried away here, but may just add a little more interest to the drawing. Okay, that does it for the arm.